Hey guys, it is Chad here from the Battle Warrior Podcast, and I'm just letting all you listeners know that the Battle Warrior Podcast episodes will be available across all podcast platforms, guys. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this brand new episode today. All right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Battle Warrior Podcast. This is Chad on one side. We have Jeremy Williams on the other. Guys, we have an author book that just got literally released about a month ago, Survive, Scale, and Soar. And I actually have it on my end here, guys. He has it on the back shelf. Awesome. I mean, just dig in depth here, guys. He is owner of Red Hawk Coaching. He just best-selling author, actually number one best-selling author. Let's put that in here. Real estate guy. We have a long list of stuff that he does. He helps, most importantly, guys, he helps a lot of real estate people, a lot of coaching, a lot of entrepreneurs survive in the I would say United States, but I was going to say mainly in the Houston area. So guys, welcome to the show, Jeremy Williams.
Yeah, Chad, thanks for that introduction. I really appreciate that. And I'm excited about being on the show today and seeing where this conversation leads. And yes, I've got SURVIVE-SCALE-SOAR. We could jump into that, but I want to be here for your audience today. And you just take me where we need to go. I want your audience to get the most value possible when they're listening to this.
Absolutely, man. And the biggest thing, for me is SURVIVE-SCALE-SOAR. I will be brutally honest. I have not got into it yet. I'm working my way through all the books that were provided in the group that we're in. You're actually on my next one. Next, what happened is I wanted to do it in the airplane when I was traveling back and forth to Dallas. I ended up getting cut off in time, so I actually finished the other book I had. So it is on my list to do next here. So
no worries. And Chad, I wrote the book for my kids, and my daughter's 15 and my son's 12, and I actually wrote the book to them, being my primary audience. Because I want to teach them things down the road, and they still haven't read it. So no worries.
Yeah. So let's dig deep into that, because obviously people that have been around me understand I'm writing my own book, and I'm not going to go selfishly on this side of it here. But the biggest thing I want to dig into is when you're developing a book, obviously we have all kinds of ideas and stuff in there. But the thing that I think people overlook, and this is what I tried so extremely hard for, is the flow. And I call it the AC/DC effect, but like the song flow. So keep it simple, keep it great, make it flow, make it easy for, I call it grabbing that tone, but like grabbing that tone of the audience that you're trying to get at. So how did you nail that?
I met Mike Fallon with Dream Starters Publishing, actually published my book. And when I came to him, I already had the concept, and I had a good portion of it written. The great thing about that process was the interview process Mike did to pull some additional stories out to complement the book. And then they helped put the finished product together. And so, it's start to finish was a month. Now, before that, getting the concept and the idea around it was, again, I wanted to write something for my kids. I wanted my book to be a legacy tool that could help them when they, went out into the world, and they could learn from the mistakes that I've made and the successes that I've had. I don't like to call them failures, because we can always learn. I call them learning lessons, because that's what you do, is you learn and you go and do it better. And so the concepts, I sat down and I just made a list. And I said, if I were to put it into a list of 7 to 10 different things, what are those main areas that I would like to pass on to my children? And as I'm writing this, I realized, this goes way beyond that. It goes out to business owners. I've got friends that have reached out and said, hey, I'm reading it. My college students reading it now. And, we really appreciate the information. So, writing the book is powerful. Absolutely. If you're going to do one, do it. But what I did was I just sat down and I brainstormed. And, it took me a day or two to kind of come up with those 7 points. And once I got the 7 points done, then it was off to the races there, and just creating the content, adding the stories to it.
And I'm gonna dig into actually the length of it, because both of us understand like 15,000 words is 100 plus pages, whatever. But you get to a point, or at least I notice, and add in if it's your side of it, where it's like you get it laid out, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to add this in. I got to add this in. I got to add this in. And all of a sudden you're sitting on what, 30,000 words?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it can really quickly, I had written myself probably about 70 pages of it. And then they came in and added the rest. And it's amazing how you put a couple stories in, all of a sudden it went from a 60, 70 page book to, 100 plus. And so, as you're going through it, there's always going to be things that you add in. And I have to be honest, there were some things that I took out. I was like, it really just isn't relevant. Or I thought it was a great idea. And when I read through it, I was like, no, or, I wanted to change the way that I put it out there. And so you go through a lot of that as you're writing. Like I said, for me, it was a 3-year process. Like I'd write a little bit, shelve it, write a little bit, shelve it. It wasn't something that, I met a guy last week that he wrote his book in 1 month, and he wrote the entire thing himself without any help. So, it just depends on the time commitment you have to it. And I didn't want to rush it. Like I just wanted to add to it as I went along. And sometimes it allowed me to pick up some stories along the way. I coached primarily real estate agents. And so it gave me the opportunity along the way to pick up some different stories that related to the different topics.
And the further we're digging into this, there's one book in mind that changed my life, and I'm sure I don't see it on your list here, but have you ever read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yes. Very great book. Right. And it's like one of the staples.
Yeah. And the thing that completely changed my life, and I'm eager, like I said, to jump in your book here, but it's not the do, learn, define, but the reverse, that the define, learn, do. And I think we can go through the list of everyone that says just that 3-word concept completely changed, probably, well, besides the cash flow quadrant, but like that concept completely changed, survive, scale, soar. Use those 3 words to help direct your clientele, or not clientele, but your readers.
Yeah. So, the survive came through just some different struggles that I went through as a business owner. I've been in the real estate industry since 2004. I sold for 6 years, built a pretty successful business there, had the opportunity to move up into some leadership roles with some of the largest brokerage offices throughout the Houston area. And that's when I was introduced to coaching. So I really started my coaching career back in 2010. And so I coached and recruited and brought people in to the brokerage. And then in 2017, spent a brief stint working with a team out of Portland, Oregon, and I ran their Texas locations. And then we had Harvey that hit, and that kind of changed everything. It literally changed Houston, and it changed the opportunity I was in at that time. And so I had to make a decision if I wanted to start over or if I wanted to build what I'd always wanted. And that was to build my own coaching program. And so the Survive is about that. I've gone through trials with court trials, and I've gone through all different types of things. I had a physical health element back in 2012 where, there was a potential of getting my arm amputated. And it could have been even worse than that. I was a week in the hospital with a MRSA infection. And so that's the survive part. The scale part is taking, the knowledge that we have and looking beyond, how do we grow that, and, a lot of entrepreneurs are in their job their entire life, where a true business owner, begins to leverage through people and find tools and things to help build and scale their business to even bigger levels to where they can have a greater impact. And then the SOAR is, and both these relate to business and life, but the SOAR is to get to that pinnacle, that place that you want to be, that goal that you have out there, that's in front of you. And, so being able to go out and soar to that, not just in business, but also in life.
Yeah. And that's a thing. And I'm in the if you look at like my history of my life and all that stuff, I know you reworded them as opportunities or learning periods instead of failures and stuff. I officially did not become an entrepreneur. I am, I want to call it entrepreneur, but like I'm still working full time, building business, just like normal people with the side hustle. I don't even want to call it a side hustle because it's way bigger than that. But in general, trying to do two things, trying to put two full-time gigs in 1 week. But the thing I was getting at is, how many people do you notice at the beginning, even past, like at the first 6 months to a year, like not understanding the mindset of what it takes and what happens when life just says, hey, all right, you want to make this path? Let's dump all the obstacles in the way.
Yeah, real estate's one of the businesses it's sexy, it's attractive, the money can be really good. And so there's a lot of people that enter the industry, but there's a lot of people also exiting the industry at the same time. At one point, there was a stat that said within a 6-month period of getting your license, 80% end up giving up. And it's a challenging thing. And a lot of people, I think, see it on the surface as being something that's really easy. And it's a challenge because it's not just selling homes. It's all the things that it takes to run a business. It's, business formation, am I going to be a LLC or am I going to be an S Corp? And, do I have an accountant that's helping me? Do I have an attorney that's going to help me? And you're bringing in all these people around you. And at first they're thinking, oh, it's easy. I get my license and go out and, help sell a home. And then they realize they're in a brokerage office with, 400 agents. And then in the area, there's probably 3,000 agents and they're all competing for the same piece of the pie. And they realize pretty quick, I've got to do something different to stand out. I talk about blue dots and being the red dot. You walk into a room and, there's 1.5 million blue dots. That's about how many agents there are in the country. How are you the red dot? How do you stand out? Because if you don't stand out, you're just going to fade in the background. And it's challenging. And I think a lot of times, and it doesn't even have to be real estate, it can be any business, is people just get this idea, hey, I'll just step into this because I'm tired of the corporate world or I'm tired of teaching, whatever it is. They just say, you know what, I'm going to do this and, it's going to be easy and fun and I get to be creative. And there's a lot of other things that go into it. I have a whole section in my book that talks about it takes work and it takes hard work. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. And I'm smiling at this right now because I started with just basically podcasts and it just blew up after that, because what happens in this industry, you start networking with people and opportunities start dropping down. And I actually went reverse of what people say. So like, who we brought up earlier, like in that network of people, it says, hey, write a book first, launch a podcast. Well, my life is usually go into the fire first, figure out you're on fire, back out, wash yourself down, then go back in the fire again. So I threw myself in the fire, learned how to, structure this podcast. And I went on throughout the, I think it's Malcolm Gladstone. Don't quote me on this, but it's Outliers. Whoever wrote that book, talking about
Gladstone.
Yeah. The 10,000 hours. So when I started doing this podcast, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I need to get 10,000 hours in, and I'm not there yet, but just in general. So I was recording, 5 to 8 episodes a week, just putting the work, and everyone's like, why are you only getting 4 hours of sleep? I'm like, well, you have an episode of this, you have an episode of that. And what happened was you started developing an art, creativity and all that stuff that you're flowing. But the challenges come where it's like, okay, now you have to go to the next level. What is required to the next level? And now, just like yourself, I have multiple different avenues where I have to put that different hat on. And it's very tough. And from looking at your book and looking at what you do, you pretty much have it locked down potentially. I mean, there might be some things on the pipeline that we don't know about, but did you learn to say the word no, or did it just naturally evolve into where it's at?
And I tell everybody, no is the most profitable word you're ever going to learn. I learned it pretty early on. I would say my first couple of years in sales, I would say yes to anything, because at that point, it's just like, how many deals can I get in? How many connections can I make? And then I started realizing that I was saying yes to a lot of individuals that might not have even been serious home buyers or sellers. And I found myself wasting a lot of time. And I had to ask myself, if I had that time back, could I go out and find the people that are really ready, willing, and able to buy or sell real estate? And so I learned pretty early on. It still took me a couple years. But once I did, it gets easier and easier and easier. I had somebody ask me the other day to do something. I was just like, I really appreciate it and honor that you asked me. I just can't. And I didn't feel bad about it. And I think that's the reason most people don't say no, is because they feel guilty. They're pleasers. They love to say yes. And, and they're afraid of how somebody might judge them if they say no. And you just have to realize you can't be everything to everybody. And that's in business, life, relationships, with family, friends, is you have to be comfortable when you need to say it, is just say no.
Did you naturally flow into that, or all of a sudden, because what happens now in the industry, people get in and it's coaching and then they go learn the hard work. You did the hard work first and then you coach.
Yeah. And coaching's still hard work. That's the thing is building. It's just like building a real estate business, building a coaching business is tough work. I mean, as far as real estate coaching, a lot of the brokerages that are out there, your national brokerages, they have their own coaching programs that they're pitching to their agents all the time. And so there's a lot of competition. So I still have to do a lot of the things that you would in any business. And, I'm prospecting daily. I've got 2 or 3 different lead generation mechanisms that I'm following. I've got systems I got to put in place, the follow-up systems. I use database, I use marketing. There's all these different components, no matter the business that you have, to be able to do these things. And so going back to no, what I've found over time is being able to say no actually has created more opportunities, more doors to open. It allows you, I'm really big on time management and how you utilize that time, your productivity. And you get a lot of that back by saying no, so that you can spend it on the things that are productive. And by saying no, it gives you more time to be back with your family. Realtors work tons of hours and they don't necessarily have to. I've got people in the industry I've worked with, they work 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They might work a Saturday by appointment and they take off Sunday. And a lot of people from the outside are like, oh, realtors are supposed to work after hours and during the weekends. And there's no way an agent can do that and be successful. The agent was able to say no. They also understand my favorite second word, which is next. And so when something doesn't happen, that's okay, because there's always going to be a next.
Yeah. And that's that word keeps people, all of us, even in the entrepreneurial world, moving.
Absolutely.
And it's so interconnected to the stairways of going to the, and this, I know this, but like all the groups that we're part of, not say all of them, but like some of the premier groups that are in Texas and, or in St. Louis. I'm not saying names, but we can label them.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yep. They want you to go to the next level. And then it's, some of them are about the watches, the cars and all that stuff. And they want it flashy. But the one thing that I struggle with, but also people recommend, is when you level up knowledge and all that stuff at let's say you're level 2, level 3, take a breath and appreciate it and all it is. And what I notice, especially with myself and everyone that wants to work hard, we always get this hustle stuck in our mind because, like ET or all those guys that are doing the professional development saying, you got to work hard, which I get. And you have to put the time and the grind in, but we lack the appreciation when we go to the next level. You notice that with yourself or just in general?
Yeah. And I think it's good to bring up. I mean, obviously those guys have a vested interest in you increasing because it's a great story for them to tell. Right. And there's times. And one of the questions that I like to ask my clients is, do you want to go to that next level? Does it make sense for you? Is it your goal, or is it, sometimes it can be a limiting belief. Like they can't get there. They want to get there. Sometimes it's just they're happy there. And that's one of the big things I like to coach is, well, what makes you happy? And sometimes it's not, they don't need the cars, they don't need the Rolexes, but they need to know they have their house paid off. They need to know their kids' college is paid for. They don't have any outstanding debt, and they can travel. And they've got that figured out for that number to take them all the way through retirement. And they're happy as a lark. And then I've got some that are just like, I want to build this as big as I want, or not as I want, as I can. So they go out and they build and they scale, and they're always looking for the next move. They're looking for those relationships that they need to have to open those next doors. And that's awesome. I just think as a coach, we have to be very careful. And what we want for them is really truly what they want for themselves. And our job as a coach is to help guide them there.
Yeah. And I don't want to put like a negative light on that, but like, I loved football because, and wrestling, all that, as much as I wanted to butt heads with the tough coaches, they were the best coaches because they laid the old school and made you put in the work. And at the end, they're like, hey man, we appreciate your hard work, or vice versa. Thank you for listening. And they're very fruitful on the other end. But the thing that, I would say what is lacking in the social media world is that what we were just discussing, that like people are so driven to the shiny things that, something so simple like my goal is just to go into the mountain, make it free to where I can travel, but also go UTVing through the mountains, bury the UTV in mud, roll out of it, laugh like a little kid, and say, all right, let's keep going. Just certain levels like that, in the moment of that, you really appreciate your freedom.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the thing with social media, and this, and most people do, I guess some don't, is what you see, perception's reality. And I think that's an unfortunate thing, because a lot of times people look at social media and be like, man, their life is incredible. They're doing all these amazing things. And really, you've got a person that's just broken. And I've had clients in the past that were like that. You'd go look at their social media and you think nothing's going on in their world, yet everything behind it was crumbling. Being in the real estate industry for as long as I have been, I've seen people go up on the stage and win these top awards, and they were broke. And because they couldn't manage their finances and their business, or they outpaced their income. And so I think it's really important, especially when people are looking at social media and they're trying to, it's that whole thing, don't compare your insides to other people's outsides, because it's probably not as good as you think. People always want to sell a story, right? And so you have to be very careful, especially with mindset, of saying, well, gosh, I'm failing. I'm sucking at this, and they're over here winning all the time. And it might not actually be the case.
Yeah. And to be 100% honest, man, I struggle with that because I'm human, man. I'm impatient. I mean, patience is what I've heard is the art of learning every year. It's just more what you go through, where your journey builds that up. So where can all my guests come visit and either purchase your book or look at all the content that you have going?
Yeah, so the best place to go, it's real simple, is just my website. It's redhawkcoaching.com, and you can find links to purchase the book. It's on Amazon. I've got it in Kindle, paperback, and hardback formats. And I've also got some free tools on that site. If you'd like to go and check them out, just register for the tools and you'll gain access to those. I've got the SURVIVE-SCALE-SOAR digital learning and training platform. And that has hours and hours of training, video interviews with some really successful people, book recommendations, all sorts of really cool stuff that can help you in your business, whether you're real estate or just a small business owner that's looking for information to kind of get you revved up and take you to that next level.
All right, man. We're going to end it because there's so much value put into this 30 minutes. I want to not stretch it out, man. So this is amazing. Thank you very much. And I look forward to bringing you back down the road here, man.
Chad, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.